They laughed. Not the kind of polite, nervous laugh that comes from uncertainty. No, this was the sharp, cruel sound of predators mocking their prey. And the prey is Captain Lyra Vale. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council shimmered. With light from 100 alien worlds, marble floors, vaulted ceilings, gold-threaded banners, telling the stories of victories against ancient enemies. But this was the first time in history a human had ever stood here. They had called her to negotiate. But Lyra could see it in their eyes. This was not a meeting. This was a trial. Above her, seated in half-circle tiers, the leaders of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy whispered to one another. Some openly smirked. Others didn't bother hiding their disgust. Soft Meat, one of them, muttered in their own tongue. But the translation earpiece fed the insult directly into her ear. The chamber echoed with low chuckles. Lyra didn't move. She didn't flinch. She simply looked back at them, one by one, and memorizing their faces. Because in less than an hour, every single one of them would stop laughing. Her journey here had been humiliating. The Council had not sent an escort, nor even a proper landing path. Her small transport had been forced to wait in orbit for 12 hours, surrounded by warships bristling with weapons, just to remind her how powerless she was. When they finally let her descend, they routed her through the cargo bays. Not the dignitary gates, the cargo bays. She had walked past crates of exotic animal hides, past the stench of machine oil, past alien guards who stared at her as if she was a zoo exhibit. They wanted her to feel small, insignificant, breakable. And yet, as she stood in the center of the council floor, she carried herself with the calm of someone holding a secret. The High Speaker, a tall, insectoid being with glassy black eyes, tapped his claw against the armrest.
A human?
It rasped. You stand before the Council of Civilized Races to answer for your kind's trespass in restricted sectors. Humanity is young, reckless, untested. We have tolerated you, but you grow bold. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some delegates laughed softly again. Others bared teeth or mandibles in amusement. You have nothing to offer this galaxy, the speaker continued. Your fleets are small, your worlds are few. Your biology is fragile, and yet you demand equal standing. The word equal came out like a curse. Lyra tilted her head slightly. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. You think I came here to beg? The chamber stilled. For a heartbeat, then one of the reptilian delegates leaned forward, his scaled lips curling. You came here because we summoned you. Do not pretend I came here, Lyra. Cut in softly, because I wanted to look you in the eyes. Before the change. A ripple of confusion passed through the crowd. The insectoid speaker clicked its mandibles. The change? Explain yourself. Lyra took a slow breath and let her eyes drift over the rows of alien faces. Before I came here, I went somewhere else. A place your maps pretend doesn't exist. A place you fear so much you erased it from your archives. Some of the delegates shifted uncomfortably, others tried to hide it. But she saw, flashback, a small human shuttle cutting through. Black space. The coordinates entered manually, because no nav system dared calculate them. The planet, a red wasteland orbiting a dying star, was little more than a whisper in the official records. Lyra had walked alone through the cracked plains, each shimmering around her. She reached a black fortress half buried in dust, its walls lined with the skeletons of ships that had tried and failed to breach it. Inside, the air was cold, too cold. Chains thicker than her body stretched into the darkness, and in that darkness, it watched her, a shape too large to fully comprehend, a presence that pressed against her mind like a storm. Eyes like molten gold, glowing faintly in the void. It did not roar. It did not charge. It simply waited. And she had walked closer. Back in the council chamber, Lyra let the silence stretch. You all know the story, she said quietly. The predator you could not kill. The one you chained beneath a dying star. You told the galaxy it was dead. But you never went back to check, did you? A murmur. A nervous glance between two delegates. I found it, Lyra said, and I made it an offer. The insectoid speaker tilted its head sharply. You lie, that thing obeys no one. Lyra's lips curled in the smallest of smiles. That's what you believe? Another flash of memory? She stood before the predator. It had tested her, rushing forward so fast the chains groaned, stopping with its jaws inches from her face. Had not moved. She had told it of the council, of how they had hunted its kind to the edge of extinction, of the fleets that burned entire worlds to destroy a single one of its kin. And then she had whispered something, words that even now she kept to herself, and the predator had lowered its massive head. Not in defeat, but in recognition. The chamber, one of the amphibian delegates hissed. Even if this were true, what could you possibly? Lyra's voice cut across the air like a blade. You mock me now, but soon. She let the pause stretch. The chamber holding its breath? You'll kneel. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the laughter started again, uneasy this time, because deep in the pit of their collective memory, the council remembered the predator's true name, and they remembered. It had never bowed to anyone. This is just the first part of the story. The predator hasn't even arrived yet, but the promise of it, the fear of it, is already planted in the audience's mind. It sets up part 2 perfectly when the viewers finally see the beast. They said no one who went there ever came back. A dead world, a dying star. And somewhere, beneath its burning skies, it's a cage of the galaxy's most feared predator now. A human was going there alone. Lyra's shuttle cut through black space, its engines leaving only a faint trail of ion light behind. Her hands rested calmly on the controls, but her eyes never left the view ahead. Through the cockpit window, the planet grew larger, a cracked red sphere lit by a star that burned too hot too close. She'd read the old war records. The official ones called this place uninhabitable, the unofficial records.
Right.
The ones hidden deep in the forbidden. Archives told a different story. Once this world had been home to a species so dangerous, so cunning, that entire fleets had been lost hunting them. And one of them, the last of them, had been locked here in chains. The council called it the Devourer. They said it was dead. They lied. The shuttle buckled as it hit the atmosphere. Heat washed across the hull. Lyra's eyes narrowed against the glare as red storms swirled below, carrying sand and ash across the surface like ocean waves. She found the signal easily, a faint ancient beacon still pulsing from the surface. It was old tech, primitive compared to modern beacons, but still working, still calling to anyone foolish enough to answer. She brought the shuttle down on a flat plateau of cracked stone. The landing gear hissed against the heat. When the engines went silent, there was nothing. No wind. No distant roar of animals. No life at all. The fortress rose before her like a shadow against the burning horizon. Its walls were made of black steel, a metal so strong it was said to have outlasted entire civilizations. Ships lay scattered around it, the shattered skeletons of battles long over. Some had been blasted to pieces, others torn apart. Lyra walked forward, her boots crunching on the scorched earth. Every step echoed in the silence. At the gates, she found them open, not wide, just enough for a single person to slip through, like the jaws of a beast, waiting inside. The air was cold. It shouldn't have been possible. She felt the temperature drop instantly, frost crawling over the black steel walls. The light from outside faded fast. Her footsteps sounded too, loud in the vast emptiness, and then she heard it, a slow, steady sound, metal groaning. Chains, shifting. She kept walking. The floor sloped down, taking her deeper underground. Her breath formed small clouds in the frigid air. The first glimpse came from the darkness ahead. Eyes. 2 massive golden orbs. Not glowing like fire. Glowing like molten metal under ice. They didn't blink. They didn't move. They just watched her. She stopped at the edge of a massive chamber. chains thicker than her body stretched. From the walls, all leading to one shape, crouched in the center. It was huge, the kind of size that made her instincts scream to run. Its body was covered in dark, ridged plating, not armor, but skin. The claws on its hands and feet were long enough to tear through hull plating. Its head was lowered, but she could feel its attention, like a physical weight. The Devourer. The Council had painted it as nothing more than a mindless killing machine, but standing here, Lyra saw the truth. There was intelligence in those eyes, cunning, curiosity, and something else. Recognition. The Predator moved, slow at first, then faster. The chain snapped taut, with a sound like thunder. It was in front of her in less than a heartbeat, jaws opening wide enough to bite her in half. She didn't move. The hot rush of its breath rolled over her face. The golden eyes narrowed, and then stopped. "You know who I am?" Lyra said, quietly. Her voice echoed softly in the vast chamber. The Devourer tilted its head. "Just slightly. You remember them?" she continued. "The fleets, the fire, the slaughter. You remember who ordered it?" The Predator's claws scraped the floor. The sound was low, metallic, and angry. Lyra took a single step closer. She knew enough about this creature's kind to understand one thing: fear was useless. Respect was everything. "I came here with an offer," she said. "I can break these chains." The eyes narrowed further. Suspicion. But in return, she let the silence stretch. "You follow my command." The Predator moved again, not forward this time, but in a slow circle around her, studying her, testing her. It stopped behind her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from its body even in the freezing air. One sharp exhale, almost like a laugh. "I'm not asking you to fight for me," Lyra said softly. "I'm offering you a war." She told it about the Council, about the mockery, about how they had erased its species from the records, why they sat in their shining chamber and congratulated themselves for being civilized. After burning worlds to ash, a deep, low sound filled the chamber. It wasn't a growl, it wasn't a roar. Something that made the hairs rise on her neck. The Predator lowered its head, not in defeat, not in fear, but in agreement. Lyra stepped forward, placing one hand on the massive chain that bound its neck. The black steel was cold and rough under her fingers. From her belt, she drew a small device, a cutting tool unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Sparks filled the air as the chain began to melt. The Predator stayed perfectly still, watching her. When the last link broke, the sound echoed, like a gunshot. For the first time in centuries, the Devourer was free. It stepped past her, its claws striking sparks on the stone. It didn't run. It didn't roar. It just walked forward, deliberate. As if savoring each step, Lyra followed, not leading it, but walking beside it. They reached the fortress gates, and the Predator paused, looking up at the burning red sky. Its golden eyes reflected the light like molten suns. Then, without a word, it began the long walk back to the shuttle. It had made its choice, and somewhere, light years away, in the polished chamber of the Galactic Council, the first whispers began to spread. A human had gone to the dead world. A human had come back alive. And she wasn't alone. It could have killed her. In that frozen chamber, surrounded by chains older than most civilizations, the Predator could have ended Captain Lyra Vale's life in a single strike. One swipe. One bite. Gone, instead. It lowered its head. For the first time in centuries, the Devourer, the galaxy's most feared apex predator, had bowed to someone. Not in fear, not in submission, but in choice. And now they walked side by side through the black steel gates into the burning red light of the dead world sun. The air outside was hotter now, shimmering in waves across the cracked ground. Lyra kept pace with the Predator's long, deliberate strides. Out. Its claws left deep marks in the stone with every step. The shuttle sat waiting on the plateau ahead. To any watching from orbit, It would have looked absurd, a single human ship, and a massive dark figure stalking beside it. But to Lyra, it already felt like the balance of the galaxy had shifted. They stopped halfway to the shuttle. The Predator turned its head slowly toward her, as if studying her in the harsh light. "You're wondering why I freed you?" Lyra said quietly. The Predator made a sound, deep, rumbling, almost like distant thunder. Not words, but there was meaning in it. She stepped closer, her boots crunching over the cracked surface. "I didn't come here to make you my weapon," she said. "I came here because I think we want the same thing." Another low sound. "Curious now." Lyra took a slow breath. "When the Council hunted your kind, when they burned your worlds, they did it because they were afraid, not of what you were, but of what you could become." The Predator's golden eyes narrowed. The air between them seemed to thicken. "They fear humans the same way," Lyra continued. "They call us soft, weak, but they know. Deep down, we adapt. We survive. We grow stronger with every enemy we face." The Predator moved not toward her, but around her, in a slow, deliberate circle. It was measuring her again, testing her. She didn't turn to follow it. She just kept talking. "I'm not offering you servitude," she said. "I'm offering you a war, against the same ones who destroyed your kind, against the same ones who would have kept you chained here until the star burned out." The Predator stopped behind her, close. Close enough for her to hear the faint scrape of its claws against the stone. Then, silence. A long, heavy silence. And then, a sound. A deep, resonant thump. She turned her head slightly, not fully, and saw it. The Predator had lowered itself until one knee-like joint touched the ground. Its head was bowed. Not submission, recognition, acceptance. Lyra stepped toward it slowly, placing one hand against the thick plating along its neck. The surface was warm now, almost hot from the sun. It did not pull away. "This is not just my fight," she said softly. "This is our fight." The Predator rose to its full height, towering over her. The golden eyes locked on hers. It made a sound she had not heard before. A short, sharp exhale, almost like a laugh. They reached the shuttle. The ramp lowered with a hiss, and the Predator stepped inside without hesitation. It moved with surprising precision for something so large, ducking under the doorway, crouching in the cargo. Hold. Lyra took the pilot's seat, powering up the engines. As the shuttle lifted from the surface, she caught one last glimpse of the fortress below. Now empty, the chains lay scattered where they had fallen. No one would be able to put them. The flight back towards civilized space was tense. Even with the Predator sitting silently behind her, Lyra knew the moment they crossed into Council-controlled territory. Every scanner, every comm station, every patrol ship would take notice, and they did. Within an hour, a voice crackled over. "The comms. Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted space. State your cargo and intent." Lyra glanced back at the Predator. It tilted its head slightly, as if amused. She keyed the comm. "Cargo," she said calmly, "is classified." There was a pause on the other end. "Then, you are ordered to hold position for inspection." Two patrol ships appeared on the scanners, closing fast. Lyra didn't change course. When they pulled alongside, one of the ships extended a docking tube to connect. Lyra gave a single nod to the Predator. It rose. The docking hatch hissed open. Two alien soldiers stepped in and froze. The thing in the cargo bay wasn't supposed to exist. The thing in the cargo bay was impossible. The Predator didn't move. At first, it just looked at them. One soldier stumbled backward, dropping his weapon. The other made the mistake of raising his. The Predator moved. It was not loud. It was not messy. But in less than 5 seconds, both soldiers were gone. Lyra sealed the hatch and cut the docking tube. The patrol ships didn't follow. They had seen enough. Word would spread. It always did. Hours later, Lyra brought the shuttle down on a remote human outpost hidden deep in the asteroid belt. It was a quiet place, no official council presence, only miners and smugglers. When the ramp lowered, every human in sight froze. They stared at the thing behind her, and at her. No one spoke. No one laughed. That night, Lyra sat with the Predator outside the main hangar, looking out at the stars. She said quietly, "The Council will send more than patrol ships next time." The Predator made a low, rolling sound, almost eager. Lyra smiled faintly. "Good," she said. "Because the first hunt is always the most important." Somewhere far away, in the gleaming halls of the Galactic Council, the speaker received a report. A grainy hollow-image of a human walking beside an impossible shadow. The speaker's mandibles clicked sharply. "Cannot be controlled," it hissed. The messenger swallowed. "Then why does it follow her?" The speaker didn't answer. By the time dawn came to the asteroid outpost, every human there had seen the Predator with their own eyes. Some looked at it with fear, some with awe, but one thing was certain: Lyra Vale had done what no one in the galaxy believed possible. She had made the Predator listen, and soon, Galaxy would find out what that meant. This ending flows directly into Part 4, the first hunt, where we'll finally see the Predator unleashed on its first mission. For Lyra, they were laughing again. Not the Council this time, not the polished leaders in their golden chamber. These were soldiers. Hardened, armored, armed with plasma rifles. They surrounded a transport ship full of human refugees, and they were laughing. Because they thought they were about to make an easy kill. They didn't know what was coming. Lyra Vale stood on a ridge of jagged rock, the wind pulling at her coat. Far below, the alien soldiers barked orders, forcing frightened humans out of the transport. The Council had sent them to inspect for contraband, but everyone here knew the truth. This was a raid, a warning to any human who dared travel. Without Council escort, beside her, the Devourer crouched low, its golden eyes locked on the soldiers. It was utterly silent. Lyra didn't need to tell it what was about to happen. It already knew. The alien commander shouted something in his native tongue, a harsh, clicking language. One of the refugees cried out as a soldier shoved her to the ground. Another soldier raised his weapon. Lyra's voice was calm. Now. Predator moved. One instant, it was crouched beside her. The next, it was gone. A blur of black plating and claws leaping down the slope, kicking up shards of rock. The first soldier didn't even have time to scream. One swipe, and he was gone. The second soldier fired wildly, the plasma bolt flashing against the Predator's armored hide. It didn't slow down. Panic spread through the alien ranks instantly. They had trained for battle against other soldiers. They had not trained for this. The Predator tore through them like a storm. Fast, precise, terrifying. Every movement was calculated. Every kill was clean. The humans huddled against the transport, watching in stunned silence as their would-be captors fell one by one. The alien commander tried to rally his troops. "Hold your ground," he shouted in broken trade speech. "Fire. Fire." Dozens of plasma bolts lit the air. The Predator moved between them, leaping from cover to cover, vanishing and reappearing like a shadow, and then it was behind them. Lyra descended the ridge slowly, her eyes never leaving the fight. She didn't need to help. This wasn't her battle to fight. This was the Predator's first hunt, and it was making a statement. By the time she reached the transport, the ground was littered with broken weapons and dropped armor. The air stank of scorched metal and fear. The last soldier dropped his weapon and ran. He didn't make it far. The Predator's claws caught him mid-stride, lifting him off the ground. It looked at Lyra, waiting. She gave a small nod. The Predator dropped the soldier and let him run. Let the survivor tell the story. The humans stared at her, wide-eyed. Some whispered her name. Others just stared at the creature beside her. "It's all right," Lyra said, her voice steady. "You're safe now." No one moved for several seconds. Then, slowly, they began to gather their belongings, climbing. Back into the transport, the Predator stood still, its breathing steady, its golden eyes watching the horizon. No bloodlust. No wild rage. Only focus. Lyra knew what it was doing. It was listening, making sure there were no more threats. When the humans were ready, Lyra gave the order to lift off. The transport's engines roared, kicking up clouds of dust as it rose into the sky. She turned to the Predator. That, she said softly, was a message. The Predator tilted its head slightly, and for a moment she thought it almost looked amused. Hours later, in a council war room light years away, an officer slammed his fist against the table. This is unacceptable. A single human ship and an unidentified creature wiped out an entire patrol squad. The speaker's glassy, black eyes blinked slowly. It's not just a creature, it said coldly. It's the creature. Silence fell. The surviving soldier knelt before them, shaking. It wasn't possible, he stammered. It moved faster than anything I've ever seen. And he glanced at the speaker nervously. It followed the humans. Orders. The speaker's mandibles clicked. And the stories are true. Back aboard her shuttle, Lyra checked the nav console. She was taking the long way home, avoiding known council patrol routes. The Predator sat silently in the cargo hold, cleaning its claws with slow precision. It wasn't just killing for survival, it was preparing. She thought back to the council, chamber to their laughter. She wondered how many of them were laughing now. Probably none. That night, they stopped on a small moon to refuel. The sky was clear, filled with stars. Lyra sat beside the Predator on the rocky surface, both of them looking out at the blackness of space. You did well today, she said. The Predator made a low, rumbling sound, pleased. But the council won't ignore this, she continued. They'll send more next time, stronger, smarter. The Predator's golden eyes locked on hers. And then it gave the smallest nod. Somewhere out there, fleets were already mobilizing. Hunters becoming the hunted, the council had declared. War and Lyra Vale was ready for it. This ending sets Part 5 Council's wrath up perfectly, where we'll see the council strike back with overwhelming force. And Lyra using the Predator in a way no one expects. They came at dawn. Not with warnings, not with messengers. With fire. Lyra Vale woke to the sound of metal screaming. The ground shook beneath her as the sky lit up with plasma fire. Her ships. Hull sensors screamed alarms in a dozen different voices. She knew without looking. The council had found her, in orbit above the barren moon. 3 war frigates hung like black knives in the light of the rising sun. Their guns spat streams of molten light toward the surface. Every impact turned stone to glass. This wasn't a search. This was an execution. The Predator was already on its feet, golden eyes flashing in the dim light. It didn't roar. It didn't pace. It simply stood still, head tilted. Listening to the sound of approaching death, Lyra grabbed her rifle and moved to the viewport. They're not here to scare us, she said quietly. They're here to erase us. The first strike hit the edge of the camp, vaporizing the supply depot. The shockwave knocked her sideways, the air ripped from her lungs. The Predator didn't move. Dust swirled around its armored form, but it stayed rooted like a shadow carved from stone. Over the coms, a voice spoke in the council's trade speech, human vessel. You are harboring a Class Prim bioweapon in violation of council law. Surrender the creature immediately, or be destroyed. Lyra's jaw tightened. She tapped the comms console and leaned toward the mic. You had your chance, she said coldly. Now you'll see what happens when you push us. In orbit, the council admiral sneered. Fire on her position. The sky turned white. Lyra moved fast. Northridge now. She shouted. The Predator leaped, clearing the camp in a single bound, sprinting across the rocky terrain with impossible speed. Lyra followed, her boots kicking up dust as explosions bloomed behind her. The war frigates shifted their fire to track them. That was a mistake. The Predator reached the base of the ridge and vanished into the shadow of the rocks. Lyra scrambled up behind it, pulling a small black case from her pack. She opened it, revealing a fist-sized device covered in alien glyphs. A relic from the same forbidden world where she'd met the Predator. The Predator turned to look at her. She held the device up. Remember what I told you, she said softly. No mercy. The Predator's eyes flared. It took the device in one clawed hand, its plated fingers curling around it. Then it jumped straight up the ridge. Straight. Toward the incoming gunship that had broken from the fleet to pursue them. Lyra ducked into cover just as the first plasma blast hit the ridge. Through the rising dust, she saw a shadow leap, higher than anything living should leap, and land directly on the gunship's hull. The Predator moved fast, claws tearing through metal like paper. Sparks rained into the sky. The ship's nose pitched down violently as alarms blared from within. In the Council frigate's control room, the Admiral stood frozen. "Impossible," he whispered. On the view screen, the gunship buckled under something, tearing it apart from the outside. The feed cut to static. Lyra emerged from cover and sprinted across the open ground toward the rising smoke. She didn't have to see the Predator to know. It was winning. By the time she reached the wreck, the gunship lay in pieces across the ridge. The Predator stood in the middle of the burning debris, holding the now glowing device. "Fleet's breaking formation," Lyra reported, glancing at the sky. "They're scared." The Predator tilted its head toward her, and then pressed the device into the ground. The earth trembled. From the cracks in the rock, low vibration grew deeper, older than the sound of engines or guns. Something was answering the device's call. Lyra stepped back, her hand tightening. On her rifle, she didn't know what would come, only that it would not be small. In orbit, the Admiral barked for scans. The readings made no sense. Something enormous was rising from beneath the moon's surface. Something bigger than any ship in their fleet. Then it broke through. A shape of black and silver metal rose from the ground. It's taller than the frigates themselves. Not alive, but not entirely machine. Like surface pulsed faintly like muscle beneath. Armor, it turned its massive head toward the Council fleet, and it moved. The first frigate never had a chance. A single blow from the machine's arm crushed its hull like tin. The second tried to fire, but the machine caught the plasma beam on its armored forearm, deflecting it into the third ship. In less than a minute, all three ships were falling. From the sky, on the ridge, Lyra watched the destruction in silence. The Predator stood beside her, its eyes reflecting the burning wreckage above. "You planned this?" she said finally. The Predator didn't respond. Back on the Council homeworld, a dozen alarms lit up across the defense grid. The speaker stood before a wall of holograms showing the destroyed fleet. "This is war," it said. As Lyra and the Predator boarded their shuttle, the machine began to sink back into the earth, vanishing beneath the cracked surface as though it had never been. "There." Lyra strapped herself in. "We've bought time," she said quietly. "But they won't stop." The Predator's golden eyes met hers, and for the first time, she thought she saw something in them. Not just focus, not just hunger, purpose. The Council's wrath had been fierce, but Lyra knew the real storm was yet to come. This ending sets up Part 6, The Predator's Origin, where we finally reveal the truth about the Predator's species, why it follows Lyra, and what the Council truly fears. They said the Predator was a beast. They were wrong. It was a survivor. The last survivor, Lyra Vale, stood on the observation deck of her ship, watching the stars slide past. The Predator sat in the shadows behind her, silent as ever. In the faint reflection on the glass, its golden eyes burned like twin suns. They were headed toward the dead zone, a place the Council never entered. A place marked on every star map with one word: quarantine. 2 days ago, she had not even known this region existed. Now, the Predator had insisted they come here. No words, no explanations. It's just that same steady gaze when she asked why. The moment they crossed the boundary, her ship's sensors went blind. No comms, no navigation. It's just the hum of the engines and the silent weight of the dark. Between stars, Lyra tried to ignore the way the air felt heavier here. It was probably just her imagination, till the first shadow appeared. At first she thought it was a drifting asteroid, and it turned toward her ship, toward the Predator. Even through the hole, she felt it, a low, slow pulse, like the heartbeat of something ancient, The Predator rose to its full height. No weapons, no roar. Just a low rumble in its chest, almost a growl, almost a call. The shadow stopped moving. Lyra frowned. "Friend of yours?" The Predator didn't answer. Instead, it placed one clawed hand against the glass, staring into the dark. Lyra's skin prickled. Something out there had answered. Hours later, they reached it. Not a planet, not a station. A world ship so vast it blotted out the stars. Its surface was covered in jagged towers of black metal, each one glowing faintly like embers in a dying fire. As they approached, Lyra saw the truth. This was not a ship built by the Predator's kind. It was their kind. Millions of them, all frozen, all dead. The Predator stepped forward, pressing its claws against the inner hatch, as if it could feel the cold vacuum beyond. Its shoulders seemed heavier now, older. Lyra understood then. Council hadn't feared the Predator because it was dangerous. They feared it because they had killed all the others, and failed to kill this one. Inside the world ship, the silence was absolute. Every corridor was lined with skeletal remains encased in armor. Some were massive, some were small enough to fit in Lyra's arms. All of them bore the same golden eyes, now dim and lifeless. They reached a central chamber, where a single throne of black steel stood. At its base lay a weapon unlike anything Lyra had seen, half blade, half cannon, carved from the same armor that covered the Predator. The Predator knelt. It wasn't worship. It was mourning. Lyra's voice was soft. "This is your home." For the first time since she had met it, the Predator spoke. Its voice was low, harsh, almost human in its cadence. Told her the truth then. In broken trade speech, how the Council had found this world generations ago. How they had feared the Predator's kind, not for their claws, but for their unity. How they had poisoned their atmosphere, turning the world into a tomb. And how one had escaped. Lyra felt the weight of it settle in her chest. This was not just her fight anymore. She wasn't just a human captain trying to survive alien politics. She was standing beside the last of an empire that would never forgive. The Predator took the weapon from the throne, fit into its hands like it had been waiting for this moment. It turned to her. "Council dies," it said simply, and Lyra, for reasons she couldn't quite name, nodded. When they left the dead world, the stars felt colder. Lyra didn't know how many ships the Council had. She didn't know how many worlds would burn before this was over. But she knew one thing. It just awakened something the galaxy thought it had buried forever. This version of Part 6 gives us an entirely fresh style, almost like a mix of myth and military suspense, while keeping it simple and bingeable. It also gives an emotional core to the Predator and a clear why for the war. Do you want me to make Part 7? The Council strikes back even darker and more intense, so binge watchers won't click away before the finale? The first shot was fire. Not from a gun. From the sky. Lyra Vale's ship didn't see the missile. It felt it. By the time alarms screamed, half the starfield was already burning. They had found her. The Council wasn't sending a message this time. They were sending an execution. The blast wave slammed into the hull, sending the crew tumbling through the corridors. Lyra gritted her teeth, forcing the ship into a dive between asteroid fragments. "Numbers?" She barked into the comm, trembling. The voice came back. "Too many. At least 50 cruisers. More jumping in." Her stomach dropped. This wasn't a hunt. It was an extermination. The Predator appeared beside her in the cockpit, silent as always. Its golden eyes locked on the incoming. A swarm of Council ships. Lyra expected it to roar. Instead, it leaned close, speaking just loud enough for her to hear. "Do not run." It moved to the weapons station. Lyra almost told it they didn't have the firepower. Then she remembered the black steel weapon it had taken from the throne on its dead homeworld. It wasn't made for her ship. It was made for war. When the first wave came, the Predator fired. A single beam ripped through space like a burning spear, tearing a cruiser in half. The explosion lit up the asteroids in sick red light. The Council fleet hesitated. Just for a second. They should not have. The Predator kept firing, each shot a precise, merciless strike. Cruisers died in pairs. Some never even fired back, but 4. Every one they destroyed, more slipped in from hyperspace, shadows blotting out the stars. Lyra's come crackled, a voice smug and cold. "Captain Vale, you have something that belongs to us. Return it, and we may let you live." Lyra's jaw tightened. "It doesn't belong to you." She cut the cum before the voice could answer. The Predator turned its head slightly, almost curious. "You defy them," Lyra smirked, though her hands were shaking. "Guess we have that in common?" Minutes later, the Council shifted tactics. They stopped targeting her ship. They started targeting planets. Lyra's blood ran cold as she saw the feed civilian worlds in the nearby systems lighting up with fire as Council warships executed mass strikes. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about sending a message. Anyone who sheltered the Predator, or the human who commanded it, would burn. The Predator's gaze was unreadable as it watched the destruction. Then it said, in that same low growl, "Enough." It inputted coordinates into her navigation console, coordinates deep in Council space. Lyra didn't need to ask. This was it, the counterstrike. The ship shuddered as they jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Council fleet behind. The Predator didn't speak again. It didn't need to. The silence in the cabin wasn't fear. It was a promise. Somewhere far behind them, the Council fleet regrouped. Somewhere ahead was the heart of the enemy. And Lyra knew, the next time they met, there would be no hesitation. This Part 7 keeps the story moving toward the climax while giving it an unpredictable emotional beat showing the Council's cruelty, the Predator's restraint breaking, and Lyra's decision to join the war fully. The enemy's heart was not a planet. It was a fortress. A black star hanging in the void, pulsing with the power of 1,000 stolen suns. Most who saw it never lived to describe it. Lyra Vale was going to burn it down. The jump ended with a bone-deep vibration that rattled every bolt in the hull. Before them loomed the Council's core station, layers of spiked plating curling around a dark energy core. Dozens of battleships patrolled its shadow, their lights cold and sharp as razors. The Predator stood at the viewport, motionless. Its eyes reflected the fortress's glow like molten gold. Lyra waited for it to speak. It didn't. The silence was heavy, but it wasn't fear. It was the stillness before a storm. When they moved fast. The Predator launched in its personal assault craft, a black, blade-shaped vessel that seemed more alive than mechanical. Lyra's ship followed close behind, weaving through the defensive fire. Her heart pounded. This was suicide. The fortress bristled with enough firepower to vaporize a moon, but the Predator was not aiming for the guns. It cut through the patrol line like it wasn't there, diving straight toward a gap in the armor, a wound in the fortress that could only be seen at a certain angle. Lyra realized it wasn't just attacking. It knew this place. The gap led to a tunnel. The tunnel led to a throne room. The moment Lyra stepped inside, air changed heavy, hot, charged with the kind of energy that made her teeth ache. At the far end, on a seat carved from the bones of something ancient, sat the High Chancellor of the Council. He was no ordinary alien. Tall as 2 men, armored in living plates that shifted like muscle, eyes bright as blades of ice. "You return," the Chancellor said, voice deep enough to shake the floor. "Bring a human. This is curious." The Predator stepped forward, each movement precise, like the slow draw of a sword. "You sit on my throne?" it growled. The Chancellor laughed. "Your throne? You are the last of your kind. Your empire is dust." "Empires can rise again," the Predator said. Then it struck. The duel was fast, too fast for Lyra's eyes to follow. Claws met blades, sparks raining like stars. Every impact shook the throne room, columns cracking under the force. The Chancellor was strong. The Predator was relentless. Lyra wanted to help, but she knew this wasn't her fight. This was a war older than humanity itself. When it ended with silence. The Chancellor's body fell to the floor, armor split like broken glass. The Predator turned to the throne, sat. The guards didn't resist. They dropped their weapons and bowed. Lyra realized why. For them, it wasn't politics. It was instinct. The Predator looked at her. "You freed me," it said. "Now I am yours to command, or to leave." Lyra shook her head. "I'm not your master. I'm your ally. The galaxy still needs." Fixing for a moment, the Predator's lips curled. Not quite a smile, but close. And so it began. The throne was no longer a symbol of fear. It was a promise. The end.